What if the real reason he can't forget his ex has nothing to do with her? This might sting a little, but you need to hear it. He's not haunted by her smile, her laugh, or even their memories. What he's really chasing is the feeling he once had when she activated something deep inside him, something ancient, magnetic, and almost impossible to name. That energy wasn't about her. It was feminine energy itself. And here's the part no one tells you. You hold that same power, not by mimicking her, not by competing, but by awakening the original, radiant version of you. This video is about more than relationships. It's about reclaiming your softness, your intuition, and the feminine force that Carl Jung believed could heal the deepest layers of the masculine soul. If you've ever felt like you were not enough, stay with me. You're about to remember who you truly are. You've been there, haven't you? Sitting across from someone who says they're over their ex, but the way they pause when her name comes up, the way they drift when you laugh in a way that's just slightly different than hers. That sinking feeling in your chest starts to grow, like maybe you're walking through a room already filled with someone else's ghost. And the question hits you like a punch. What does she have that I don't? But here's the truth, one that might just set you free. You're not up against her. You're up against a memory. And memories lie. Carl Jung called it the shadow. It's the part of the human psyche that holds everything we repress, everything we idealize, everything we can't or won't fully see. When a man clings to the image of an ex, it's not because she was perfect. It's because the memory of her is stitched together with threads of unresolved desire, fantasy, and regret. In his mind, she's no longer a person. She's a projection, one that's often more about him than about her. Think about that. When he remembers her, what he's really remembering is who he was when he was with her. He's holding on to a version of himself that felt admired, wanted, maybe even powerful. That feeling is seductive not because of the woman, but because of what she triggered inside him. And here's where it gets deep. Most people believe men are the ones chasing conquest, logic, control. But even within him lives what Jung described as the anima, the feminine part of the male psyche. It's emotional, intuitive, receptive, vulnerable. Most men are disconnected from it. But when they meet a woman who unconsciously awakens it, something stirs. It's not her perfume or her smile, it's the way she makes him feel seen, held, safe to soften. That's what he misses. Not her, not really, but that feeling, that connection, that mirror of his deeper self. So here's the real question. Why are you trying to replace her when you could be awakening something entirely different, something real? What if it's not about being prettier, funnier, more interesting, more mysterious? What if this invisible competition you think you're in isn't even real? What if the reason you feel like you're losing isn't because you're not enough, but because you're trying to fight an illusion? Let that sink in. You don't need to shapeshift into his fantasy. You don't need to decode what she did that worked. You are not a copy. You are not a substitute. Because here's something no one tells you. When you start embodying your own feminine energy, your own softness, magnetism, depth, you stop competing. You become undeniable, not because you're louder, but because your presence speaks in a language he forgot he could understand. And that's the turning point. That's when the past loses its grip. Because now he's not comparing, he's awakening. So maybe it's time to stop asking, how can I make him forget her? And start asking, how can I remember me? Because when you do that, when you stop shrinking and start radiating, everything changes. And here's the twist. You're not the one who needs to fight for his attention. You're the one who reveals who he really is. And once he sees that version of himself reflected in your presence, no ghost from his past can compare. What if it's not about replacing her, but revealing what only your unique energy can awaken? You are not here to compete. You are here to remind him gently, powerfully, undeniably of the man he is becoming, not the one he used to be. And that, more than anything, is unforgettable. You've been told your whole life to be strong, to be composed, to not cry in public, to not overreact. You've been praised when you kept your cool, when you held it together, when you didn't need anyone. And you've been warned, sometimes subtly, sometimes not, that being soft makes you weak. But here's the truth no one ever taught you. Your softness is not a liability. It's the key. For decades, society has pushed women toward a version of power that looks and feels masculine. Be ambitious. Be strategic. Be logical. Keep your emotions in check. Climb. Hustle. Win. And sure, there's nothing wrong with strength. But the lie buried underneath it is this: that feminine energy must be edited, diluted, or hidden to be valuable. But what if the very thing you've been taught to suppress is the thing that makes you unforgettable? Carl Jung called it the Anima, the feminine archetype that lives within all of us, but especially within men. It's not about gender, it's about energy. The Anima is intuitive. She feels what others miss. She nurtures, not because she's weak, but because she sees where healing is needed. She receives instead of chases. She waits without passivity. She listens without fixing. She moves with grace, not with force. In today's world, that energy gets misunderstood, labeled emotional, too sensitive, even dramatic. But let me ask you something. Have you ever felt punished for being too emotional? Like your empathy, your sensitivity, your depth made people uncomfortable. That's not a flaw. It's a forgotten superpower. When you reclaim it, when you stop filtering your feelings through what's socially acceptable and start honoring your emotional truth, you become a force. Not one that yells or demands, but one that invites. You stop managing people's reactions, and you start becoming magnetic without trying. Because here's what happens. When a man meets a woman who fully embodies her feminine energy, not the performative version, not the self-sacrificing version, but the real, rooted kind, something in him wakes up. He doesn't always know what it is. He may not even have words for it. But something ancient stirs. A recognition, a remembering. You see, he's not just drawn to your beauty or your charm. He's drawn to the way you make space for something he's forgotten in himself. And this is the part that's often missed. Feminine energy doesn't chase, doesn't force, and doesn't prove. It just is. And in its presence, others drop their armor. Imagine this. You are the ocean, still, deep, untouchable. Not a storm to control, but a mystery to explore. You do not move to be noticed. You move because that's your nature. You are the calm and the current, the depth and the rhythm. And when a man stands before that ocean, something inside him either rises to meet it or drowns in his own unpreparedness. That is your power. It's not about using your femininity to get a man to forget his ex. That's surface thinking. That's competition mindset. Your energy is not a weapon, it's a mirror. And when you reflect back to him his own forgotten tenderness, his buried longing to feel, to connect, to be vulnerable without fear, then and only then does the past begin to fade. Because now, in your presence, he doesn't want to go back to what was. He wants more of this. Not because you tried harder, but because you stopped trying altogether and simply became. So if you've ever found yourself shrinking, toughening up, biting your tongue, or playing it cool to seem more appealing, it's time to stop. Not because it makes you unattractive, but because it makes you invisible. Your softness was never the problem. Your feeling was never too much. Your intuition was never crazy. It was always the medicine. You just didn't know how sacred it was. This is your invitation. To stop wearing armor that was never made for you. To stop translating yourself into something digestible. You don't need to be easier to handle. You need to be more fully you. Because when you return to the power of your feminine energy, you stop chasing his attention and start commanding his soul's response. And no memory, no fantasy, no ex can compete with that. She was part of his past. You're here to awaken his future. Let's get something straight. Men don't get stuck on an ex because she was flawless. They get stuck because, at one point, she reflected back a version of themselves they thought they needed to be. And that version, it was often built on illusion, performance, ego, the need to be admired, but not necessarily seen. So when a relationship ends, what haunts him isn't her, it's the feeling of who he was when he felt in control, desired, unquestioned. But something shifts as he matures if he's paying attention. He stops chasing the woman who fueled his performance and starts craving the one who brings him home. Not home as in comfort and routine, but home as in truth. as in alignment, as in awakening. You see, when he was with her, he may have felt alive, but it was a temporary fire. It burned bright, but it also burned fast. She may have sparked his ambition, his attraction, maybe even his ego. But now, he's starting to realize that fire only ever lit the surface. And you're the light beneath the surface. The quiet flame that never goes out. The glow he doesn't see coming until it's already wrapped around him. That's what makes you different. Because newness isn't about appearance. It's not about trends or timing or trying harder. It's about depth. And when you live from a deeper place, when your energy speaks to the part of him he's never shared with anyone, you become the woman he can't forget, not because you replaced her, but because you revealed him. Have you ever wondered why some people leave a room and no one notices, while others shift the entire atmosphere without saying a word? It's not volume, it's vibration. When you move through the world connected to your feminine truth, unbothered, unchased, and undeniable, you stop being someone he wants to impress and become someone who makes him question the version of himself he's outgrown. And that is terrifying, but also irresistible, because it means stepping away from the familiar and toward the unknown, away from the ego's applause and into the soul's silence. He can't play the same games with you. You don't take the bait. You don't need to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. That's why he won't forget you. You're not the thrill. You're the threshold. So ask yourself, do you want to be a thrill or a sanctuary? A thrill is exciting, yes. It's fast, dizzying, and hard to hold. But a sanctuary? A sanctuary is where he goes when he's ready to stop running, where he doesn't have to prove anything, where he can exhale, fall apart, rebuild, breathe. And here's what no one tells you. You can be soft and strong. You can be quiet and powerful. You can be calm and unforgettable. His ex may have ignited the fire, but you awaken the soul. You show him what's possible when love isn't about control but expansion, when it's not about possession but presence. You don't offer him escape. You offer him evolution. So let go of the urge to outperform the past. That version of him belonged to a different chapter. That fire, as bright as it burned, was never meant to last. You are the light that stays, the invitation into a future he didn't know he was ready for. And once he steps into it, once he feels the peace and the power of being fully seen, he will not look back. Because nothing in his past could prepare him for you. You don't compete with her, you outgrow the game. Read that again. Because the moment you stop proving, persuading, performing, is the moment everything shifts. Not just in him, but in you. The moment you stop asking, what do I need to do to be enough? And start asking, why did I ever think I wasn't? That's when you break the spell. That's when the past loses its grip on him and on you. Here's the lie we're fed, that love must be earned, that connection is a contest, that we're supposed to measure ourselves against someone else's history, heartbreak, or highlight reel, that if he's still thinking about her, it's because you're missing something. But what if you're not missing anything? What if you're just wasting energy trying to win a game that was never meant for someone like you? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be chosen. We all do, in some way. But when that desire starts to contort you, when you find yourself shrinking, hiding, second-guessing, molding yourself into what you think he wants, you've already lost. Not to her, but to a version of yourself that's disconnected from your truth. Because the truth is, you don't become unforgettable by trying harder. You become unforgettable when you stop trying to be something and start allowing yourself to simply be. Imagine walking into a room and not asking, do they want me? But instead asking, do I feel peace here? That changes everything. Because now, you're not there to be approved of. You're there to observe, to feel, to decide. You're not waiting for a signal that you're wanted. You're choosing whether you want to stay. And in that moment, something deep inside you softens, but not in a weak way. In a way that says, I am no longer available for anything that requires me to beg for value I already possess. That kind of self-possession is rare. And rare things are magnetic. So let him remember her. Let him hold on to that image in the back of his mind if he must. You don't need to chase it away. You don't need to compete with it. Because once he feels what it's like to be with someone who is not performing, not convincing, not proving herself, he'll realize he's never felt this kind of peace before. Not in the excitement, not in the chase, not in the past. Because here's what makes you unforgettable. You are not asking to be chosen. You are choosing. You are not adjusting yourself to fit into a story that was written before you arrived. You are writing a new one, from the inside out. And that, more than anything, is the energy that dissolves comparison. It doesn't fight for space, it creates it. It doesn't argue to be seen, it simply stands still and shines. So if you've ever asked yourself, why hasn't he forgotten her yet? Ask instead, why have I been trying so hard to be someone he never truly met? Because the moment you stop chasing is the moment he sees you for the first time. Not as someone filling a space that once belonged to someone else, but as someone who never needed to compete for it to begin with. Let him forget her. Not because you erased her, but because you reminded him of something bigger than the past. Because in your presence, there is no need to compare, no need to chase, no need to pretend. There is only peace and power and the quiet certainty that says, I know who I am and I know what I carry. You are not here to be chosen. You are the one who chooses. This isn't about him forgetting her. It's about him remembering who he is when he's with you. That's the shift. That's the truth no one ever says out loud because we've been taught that the goal is to make him forget, to erase the past, to become so captivating, so flawless, that he never even thinks about what came before. But here's the secret. He doesn't stay because you're more perfect. He stays because something about you brings him back to himself. When you live fully in your feminine energy, not in a forced way, not as a performance, but as a natural extension of who you are, you become a mirror, not for his ego, not for his image, but for his essence. The part of him that's usually hidden behind roles and routines. The part that longs to feel deeply and speak honestly without being judged for it. The part that wants to exist, not just achieve. That's the power of the feminine. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." He wasn't talking about becoming a better version of yourself. He meant remembering what was always there underneath the masks, the wounds, the conditioning. You carry that gift. When a man feels safe enough to drop his armor around you, when he feels seen, not sized up, felt, not analyzed, met, not managed, that is when the past begins to fade. Because what the past offered was often comfort through familiarity, but you offer connection through presence. And the difference is everything. He may have loved her, he may have felt a rush with her, but with you, he breathes deeper, he thinks clearer, he slows down, he no longer needs to perform. Because your energy doesn't demand attention. It invites authenticity. That's why he stays. Not because you fought for him, but because you never asked him to fight himself to be with you. And that's the wild paradox of it all. You never needed to win him over. You only needed to be rooted enough in your own truth that he felt inspired to return to his. When you live as your full, embodied self, when you stop over-explaining, over-efforting, over-giving, you create space. And in that space, he meets himself in ways he couldn't before. Not every man is ready for that. Some are still addicted to the thrill, the chase, the high of being needed but not truly known. But the ones who are ready, really ready, will not walk away from a woman who helps them see their own soul more clearly. That's not something you can fake. That's not something you can force. It's something you become when you stop reaching outward for validation and start turning inward for truth. Because let's be real, when you are connected to your essence, your worth is not up for negotiation. Your value isn't built on what you offer him. It's built on how deeply you know yourself. And in that knowing, you become a calm he didn't know he needed. A stillness that challenges him without shaming him. A presence that softens him without shrinking yourself. This is the feminine energy that makes him stay. It's not loud. It's not desperate. It doesn't compete. It just is strong, soft, grounded, and unshakably true. So let go of the story that says you have to be unforgettable by being more dramatic, more interesting, more alluring. He doesn't forget her because you fight for his attention. He forgets her because in your presence, he remembers himself. And that, more than any game, any strategy, any performance, is the kind of magic that can't be replaced. You were never meant to learn how to keep him. That was never the assignment. Your work, your freedom, is in remembering who you were before you thought you had to earn love. Feminine energy isn't something you study or perform. It's not a strategy you pick up from a book or a list of steps to follow. It's the part of you that's always been there, buried under fear, expectations, and the pressure to be someone else. It's in your stillness, your presence, your truth. When you return to that place, you don't chase, you don't compare, and you don't perform. You lead, quietly, unshakably, with a kind of power that no one can imitate and no memory can replace. He doesn't stay because you fit his idea of perfection. He stays because something about you feels like home, not to who he was, but to who he's becoming. If this reminded you of who you are, share it with someone who needs the same awakening. And if you're ready to live from that power again, tell us in the comments. You're not alone anymore.